Welcome to OSSB Inside and Out, a podcast about staff member and alumni experiences at the Ohio State School for the Blind. Each week, we interview someone from the Ohio State School for the Blind about their experiences. Now here's your host, Brendon Hamblin.
Welcome back to another episode of the OSSB Inside and Out podcast. This week, I've got one of my favorite people from OSSB. He is a former interim principal, and he is Mr. Jeff Reinhard. How are you doing today, Mr. Reinhard?
Oh, Brendon, thank you. I'm doing great now that I can hear your voice and get caught up a little bit on what's happening at one of my favorite places to serve as principal, OSSB.
That's great to hear.
So I'm doing well. I'm just old. So, but that happens.
Yeah, that happens with life.
That's right. But we're doing fine.
Yes, we are. We're both breathing, so that's good.
That's right. We're both breathing, so that's good. Yeah.
So let's start out with how you first found out about the school and how you got involved with becoming the interim superintendent, or wrong title, principal.
Well, thank you for asking. And by the way, thank you for reaching out to me and your interest in where I am and my memories and my reflections of one of the most special times in my life. So in December, maybe late November of 2014, that sounds like a long time ago.
It feels like a long time ago.
Yeah. And sometimes it does and seem like a long time ago, and sometimes it seems like only yesterday.
Right.
I was, around that time, November, December 2014, I was informed of potential interim principalship at the Ohio State School for the Blind. I had served in several interim principalships in Hilliard and Dublin and actually Southwestern city schools, and knew a lot of people that knew that I had retired from Hilliard after 38 years, I guess, and knew that I had some experience. So around that time, I received a call inviting me to, let's say, explore the possibility of being principal at OSSB. I was intrigued by that opportunity and invited to come to the school and meet some folks, share a conversation, and become acquainted with what it might be to be a part of the staff at the Ohio State School for the Blind. Actually, as I remember now, it was around Christmas time because, and Brendon, you were probably involved with it, the Christmas concert program was going on, and it might have been one of my final interviews where I met some very important people from downtown, the State Department of Education, and so forth. But
all the important people.
Yeah, all the important people, right. I'd met with several staff, and then I had to go through a final interview, submit some paperwork, and they had to check me out and references and so on and so forth. But that was about the time. At first, I would tell you I didn't know whether I could at all be qualified to serve in the capacity of a leader, a principal, with no experience with the visually impaired, but lots of school experience.
Right.
And the more I became involved with the interview, the more I realized that this wonderful school home was a calling to me, and I really was anxious to be part of it. So I was thrilled when I received word that I would be appointed or recommended to fill the vacancy, and I was thrilled. Scared, anxious.
That comes with the territory of venturing into a new space, an unknown place, right?
Absolutely. You're right on there, Brendon. Probably for any one of us who is starting a new career, a new adventure, a new page in life, you're a little bit anxious about what comes next. So I spent that Christmas vacation then when I received word that the school wanted me, and I would begin my work then when students came back from Christmas break, the 1st of January, 2nd, 3rd, whenever it was, the first week in January, would be the first time that I would meet a lot of staff and the student body and all the support personnel and everyone involved in the school. So that Christmas vacation, I was pretty busy
preparing yourself.
That's right. Reading a lot, reviewing a lot, walking the halls a lot, getting a feel for the school itself. As you recall, Brendon, I know you were there during that time, and you and I had some conversation about this. The old school and the new school were joined in the new addition, and a massive amount of work went into that, I know. And so just getting a feel where offices and classrooms and support rooms were, and realizing the pool was a big part of the learning environment, a swimming pool, and and all the support people that made the school run. I think the cottages were newly erected. There's some new facilities that were up and running and that kind of thing. So I had a lot to learn, and I'm not sure what staff member kind of slowed me down just a little bit. A teacher, I can't remember who it was. It simply just said, "You probably are not going to be able to learn it all in one day. Just take one step at a time."
Right.
And
take
maybe
baby
that
steps.
That's right. Yeah. So don't try to know it all. Just take some mini steps. And so that was great advice. I literally then, when you all, the student body, the students came back, and I got a chance to meet students and to meet your teachers and to experience the school, I literally fell in love with the entire environment. The community of OSSB was and still is a huge, huge part of my career and my school experience. And this is interesting. I told someone today that about my school experience and with the Ohio State School for the Blind and how special that was for me, because that was my last school principalship. After many, many years, I realized that I really wanted to end my principaling career with the Ohio State School for the Blind. And so that's probably more than you wanted to hear. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It makes for good content.
I have is rambling. On. I'm sorry about that. I apologize, but
it's all right.
Whoever might be listening to this might say, "Yeah, we remember that." So he just talked a lot.
It makes for good content.
There you go.
But yes, back to the whole, that family feeling of OSSB when you walk through those doors. You're not the only one that got that feeling. I'm sure everybody who walks through that building, whether it's staff, visitors, what have you, students, they all get that feeling. Because that's just, OSSB's a family. And we've talked about this in past episodes too. OSSB is undoubtedly a family. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Exactly. And I think the caring, nurturing, loving environment of that school is something that that remains a very, very important part of my reflection about school life in general. But I've never seen that replicated. I've never felt that kind of closeness. I recently have gotten on Facebook with a few people and just really, really enjoy kind of reflecting back on that time. But I guess it's because the people who were there loved what they did. Students loved to be with one another, and that's for the most part. And there's probably a few things that I recall back then that maybe were a little bit of an issue for some people, getting along and learning how to live together. But that's life, and those are the real important lessons of life that we all learned together, and that was extremely important to me. So I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it.
And that whole people not getting along, that happens in families too. So it's not
absolutely.
It's not normal.
Yeah, it's not normal, right? I think if you don't have the valleys, you don't know what the peaks are. So if you don't have a little rain during the day and during the week, you don't know how good the sunshine feels. So so that's life, and I think that's my takeaway. My big takeaway from that time with you all at OSSB was seeing and learning and understanding, feeling that closeness of relationship.
Right. And you were involved with quite a bit during your time, whether it be sports or band or any extracurricular you can think of. You were pretty much at all of them.
Yes. I loved
as best you could be.
Pardon me?
As best you could be. You were at all of them.
As much as I could be.
Yeah.
Right. I think student life, those things that drive student life and those activities that enrich students' life, co-curricular, extracurricular activities, band, choir, athletic programs. It enriches the school experience, but it also connected me with children and coaches and directors and their families. I loved it. I enjoyed it, and my wife and I were deeply engaged with the school activity calendar, and I guess that's the other thing, is that my wife Carol loved the experience of being at OSSB as much as I did. So it was exhausting. It was I was younger than I am now, but I you guys wore me out some days, trying to keep up with everything.
Yeah,
but
some days we did have some busy days.
Yeah, we did. There were some long days and some early mornings, and but I did. I absolutely loved the opportunity to serve, because you all, as a student body, were serving each other, and that made me very happy. I tell the story sometimes that even though we might think that we had some disabilities, perhaps, or some limitations as students and staff, there wasn't a day that some student or lifted up another student or a staff member who might have been struggling or having a tough day. I just think that was another big, huge takeaway, the caring that students had for each other, and certainly the compassion that teachers had for students. Never have I experienced that level of commitment to teaching and learning than I did at OSSB. So
right.
It was huge. It was has been huge. So
I'd go back and do it all over again.
You know what? I would too. And when I do get to go back every once in a while, I think or perhaps I've told you, might remember, I was kind of the donut guy. I brought donuts to occasionally on normally I think on Fridays, or maybe a special day or whatever. Right. And for teachers, and sometimes sneak one off to somebody, so maybe even you got a chance to have one, I'm not sure. But anyway, I do get to go back every once in a while and maybe take some donuts or spend some time, and absolutely love the opportunity to reconnect with our friends at OSSB. It's been absolutely wonderful to go back, and I still stay in touch.
Right. I do too. I'm on the Parent-Teacher Staff Foundation board, so I get to at least go back once or twice per school year, because I also run soundboard for the concerts.
I knew you were doing that for the concerts, and what better person to do that than a guy that completely understands it and
has the training.
And has the training, and I don't know how you know which button to push and cord to plug, but you do an amazing job. So I think that's wonderful, by the way, Brendon, that you stay in touch with your alma mater. It was the school was good to you, and you have been good for the school. So
right,
I commend you for that.
And I also started the Rise Above chapter of OSSB, which you had a lot of help in.
That's right. Right. Absolutely. That was a piece that I kind of had slipped by me, but you were instrumental in that. We had a couple meetings, a couple sessions, as I recall, right?
Right. And then we did the pitch for the staff. Right. One day after school. That went really well.
That was good. We did. That's right. A staff meeting, or
staff meeting.
We had early out, or we had a day that we made that pitch, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I every once in a while I have these flashbacks of time where I remember certain things happening, and maybe most of my memories, I guess, about school are mostly positive. You know, I try not to reflect too much on the mistakes I made, but I'm sure they were there. But I guess the big word that I just keeps coming back to me is the joyfulness, if that's a word, but a lot of joy in what we did together.
Right.
I just think that kind of punctuated a lot of who and what we did, and how we behaved, and how we served one another.
Right. And you were pretty silly with some of the younger students. Well, you were pretty silly with all of us, because you were the one with the duck whistle.
And I think I gave that duck whistle to you, did I, when I left?
You did. And I've still got it. It's in a drawer somewhere, but I've still got it.
Yeah, I know. It's in a drawer someplace. Yeah. And sometimes I perhaps get criticized, maybe, if I say this, but I think most people would understand it. I think life is sometimes funny, and school is life, and school should be fun, and maybe a little bit funny, not crazy, off the wall, knucklehead, never focused, chaotic craziness, but fun in terms of laughter, or joy, what I call happy speech, addressing one another with kindness. And when that happens, I think families, communities, but in our situation that we live with, school, for young people and old people, for teachers and students, needs to have a little bit. Hey, stuff is funny, and if we walk around with doom and gloom and woe is me, and it'll never get better, kind of attitude, we can become very depressed and not too happy. And when that seeps in, I think, too much to a school setting, or to a family setting, or a community setting, it can be very detrimental, I think, to learning. So, there's some goofy things. The duck whistle was kind of, I think that was kind of a signal that we were all doing well, or a good job. We had different times that we blew the duck whistle, but for those with limited vision, it became kind of that must be Mr. Reinhard, coming down the hallway.
Right, it became kind of your calling card.
It was, and that was just something that became part of my time with you all, and it was fun for me. I'm not sure it was always appreciated by everyone on staff, but I think they tolerated it. And there are probably people say, well, he's just our interim principal anyway, and he'll probably go away, and we'll get somebody else that has a
Right.
a little bit different approach. But it was my approach, and it's how I tried to personalize school, and yeah, we had some fun. Yeah, I thought that was kind of important for us to all have a little bit of fun.
Yes, we did. And
Yes.
are there any specific like band events or sporting events or school days that stick out in your mind?
Well, I continue to remember back, and I will tell you, Brendon, I was just in Washington D.C. Carol and I attended a wonderful event. It was a funeral for a dear friend who was being buried in Arlington National Cemetery in Washington D.C. And we were there last week. The end of last week.
Right.
And so I went with a band, the marching band, to Washington D.C. on Memorial Day. That would have been Memorial Day 2015. So
Correct.
that would have been May. That would have been May of 2015, Memorial Day weekend.
Yep.
Marching band was marching in the Memorial Day parade.
Yes, we did.
And it was, and I think you probably recall, it was very, very warm. Do you remember that?
I remember.
And we were all, I'm going to say perspiring, but I was sweating.
Right. I'm sure we all were to some degree.
Yeah, you all were. And, but we had a great time. DC's just wonderful. But then it was parade time. And after the parade, now my wife and I drove over on our own because we needed to, how'd I do that? Anyway, I kind of forget, but I didn't want to leave school. So I think I left as early as I could. But anyway, got over to Washington. Yeah, we had an event at school that I had to stay back for, and then I jumped in the car and drove like a madman. I think you guys are already over there. I'll get to my point here in a minute.
It's all right.
So the parade is parading. We're all lined up. We're ready to go, and Mrs. Agler,
Yep.
Carol Agler, your band director,
At the time.
was retiring.
Yep, that was her last year.
That was her last year. It was coming up on her last gig as a band director. I was approaching my last days as your principal. I had been invited to, by the way, I don't know if I shared this with you, but the powers to be, the administration, the upper level administration did invite me and had me consider to come back for another year of principaling at OSSB, and I did strongly pray about that and consider that, but it turned out life is, God has a plan, and his plan was to have someone else come in and for me to retire for the third or fourth time. Anyway, as Mrs. Agler and I are marching with you, as we're lining you all up, and I'm a guide for one of your classmates, and I'm on one side of the formation. Mrs. Agler's on the other side. The parade begins. I am terribly, I become very emotional at that time. I don't know whether it was a sound. I don't know whether it was the beat. I don't know whether it was the cheering. Because if you recall, the everyone that you passed by cheered for when they saw the banner and heard the sound of the band, the OSSB band from Ohio.
Right. Which they always seem to do.
And they always do. But it seemed like it was significantly more powerful. And maybe it was just me. But I became suddenly aware that I was closing in on my final days with you all.
Right.
It sounds kind of terminal, but I realized that when we got back, let's see, we still had to go through graduation, I guess, didn't we?
Yeah, graduation would have been the end of that week, I believe.
End of that week, right.
So we had one week left of school.
Okay. So I had 3 to 5 days with y'all, and then I'd have to say goodbye.
Right.
And Mrs. Agler looked over across at me, and I looked over across to her, and we both wept the entire length of the parade. Between the sweat rolling off my face and the tears coming down my cheeks, I was a wet, messy mess by the time we got to the end of the parade. And part of it was perspiration. The other was just I was exhausted from weeping and crying so hard because I realized I may not have the opportunity to even say goodbye to everyone I needed to say goodbye to. And I was extremely touched by that. I was extremely touched, and I'll never forget that. I mentioned I was in Washington, D.C. a few days ago, and we drove. I took a quick tour with some folks, and we drove down that street where we marched, and it brought that back, and I shared that story with people that I was with. So it was a real special time. It was a closing in on my final chapter of my principaling career, and I got to spend it with the best blind band in the land, and one of the finest organizations that I've ever been involved with, and a great group of students and staff members. And I realized that I had been blessed with an opportunity to serve, and I was very, very, and will continue to be very, very grateful for that chapter in my life. It'll always be there. It's just always going to be there.
Yes, it will.
So there's other things. There were times that there lots of other experiences. Every day, I think, was a chapter for me. I love doing morning announcements, as you recall, as you remember.
And we loved when you did them.
Yeah. And, and we were a little goofy with some of those, and I was even kind of let's say scolded, but reminded by a teacher that we didn't have to have announcements go quite as long as we did. But there were times that there were some fun and funny things that I thought we all enjoyed doing. So
right.
Anyway, it was my signature, I guess, my little time of the day when I thought I could at least reach out and be with everyone in the school building, even though it was a goofy time. We kind of had that together. So
right.
Yeah.
Let's see. You were kind of in the process of quote unquote, preserving, because I can't think of another word, or trying to preserve the school's past during your time.
Yes.
As the principal.
Right.
So you had your hand in pretty much every honey or cookie jar OSSB has. Yeah.
Well, I'm. The history of the school is so significant to education in Ohio. The belief that all children can learn and all children have the capacity to grow and develop, and is absolutely a cornerstone, I think, to education in Ohio. And I realized when I dug a little deeper into the early beginnings of school, even the building itself, how it operated, and then to see some of the artifacts and the people who had gone before, pictures and articles and people that I'd heard about who were in leadership positions in the school. And I became very interested in, and had I been there longer, I think perhaps I might have dug a little bit deeper into that process. But yeah, I'm a big historian. I think the past is to be cherished and honored. Doesn't necessarily mean that we need to follow things because the world changes and technology changes and life
people
changes and resources change. But something that doesn't change is the capacity of people to care. And I think that the cornerstone of OSSB through the decades has been that the calling of teachers, not just to work there in OSSB, but to serve. And I think there's a huge difference sometimes in going to a job and serving in a job. You're a great example of that. This is you. I believe that what you're doing is serving your school, your alma mater, and the greater community by your work.
Right.
It is work. It's a job.
It's fun to do.
Career. It's fun to do. And there's nothing better than having fun doing the things that you love to do.
Right.
Then it's really not work. It's service.
Right.
And
up until a couple weeks ago when iHeart let me go, I got to play radio for the past almost 3 years.
Wow. That's wonderful. That is wonderful. And a great tribute to you, something that you can and will forever keep in your resume is the fact that you have had those opportunities to do that. I think that's most commendable. Most commendable.
I agree.
I think that I think that that's probably my biggest takeaway perhaps is the fact that we had an opportunity to serve and to serve together. So
yes, we did.
And I look forward. I guess my other takeaway would be the times that the early morning time, coming to the gym, seeing you and your friends, and catching up on what happened the night before, perhaps from our kids in the cottage, and
right,
and then seeing the buses roll in each morning, and checking in with bus drivers from every place, all over, the metro area and
all over the state, really. Wow.
Yeah, all over the state, and then seeing you all together and kind of just having a cup of coffee, because I normally have my coffee with me.
Right.
So and then really hustling on down to I remember I used to carry on conversations a lot with people, and all of a sudden someone said, I would hear Chris Pennington's voice on the radio, or on the speaker.
On the announcements.
I'm late on the announcements, and he was giving the weather, and I suddenly realized I'm late. I got to book it down that long hallway.
Right.
And for an old man, that took a lot of effort. So, those are things that I remember that will never, ever get taken away from me, and I cherish that time, Brendon. I just absolutely cherish that time. I will forever remember it. You know, I was in places for long periods of time, in schools and school districts and so forth.
Right.
You know, I was only with you all for 5 or 6 months, maybe.
Something like that.
I guess I was there through, something like that. And yet, the memories are deeper with you all than perhaps they were in another part of my career. Now, part of that is I ended my career with you, so they're still fresh in my brain.
Right.
That's probably one thing. But I think the lasting part of it is that I don't know how else to say this other than to say it was real. You guys were real. There was no phoniness or no one trying to be something they weren't, for the most part.
We showed our true colors.
Yeah, yes. And we were helpful to one another. And the other thing is I did not have a clue on a lot of things that I needed to do. And yet you, your classmates, your teachers helped me sort through that, and we figured it out. So I felt good about that. I didn't try to pretend like I knew, because I didn't. I might have some idea. And I started to learn the ropes a little bit about what I could do and what I shouldn't do in terms of practice and policy, but and I'm not talking about bad things. I'm just talking about how the operational stuff, and that was cool. But I had to learn, and I had to learn quickly. So, and I realized that, and you all allowed me the chance to do that, something that I'll forever be grateful of. So, I guess my one thing that I want to make sure I say is that I have a full measure of gratitude. I have an attitude of gratitude for you, your classmates, your teachers, everyone who stuck with me during that time when I needed to learn and learn quickly. But thank you to OSSB, to those who got me to that point in my career. The opportunity to serve will never go away, and I will forever be grateful to the school and to the students and staff. You taught me well.
Well, that's good. At least we taught you.
The best lessons I ever learned are from students.
It's a two-way street.
Some of the best lessons I ever... Pardon me?
It's a two-way street.
It is. So some of the best lessons I've ever learned in school have been from students. Some of the best lessons I ever learned from students are from those students at OSSB. And I think of you often. And thanks for the opportunity to even share some of these thoughts with people that might be interested.
Right. And I know one of your buddies from the school, who is unfortunately no longer with us, was Aiden.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, my. Yeah, I have Aiden's picture on our refrigerator, and I wear his Romeo pizza hat. He gave me a hat. I think you probably remember. He worked at Romeo's Pizza, and I think just on the weekends, not during school, but Friday nights maybe.
I think I remember.
And he gave me maybe not his hat, but a hat from Romeo's Pizza, and I every now and then will switch off on wear that. But yeah, his picture's on our refrigerator. I was devastated. I was just devastated when we
heard the news.
We all were. But we all were. I've been back for a couple memorial events and times with his family and his friends, and his project to support those less fortunate, and Aiden's Angels project are just very, very special. And another example of a young man who cared deeply for his community. But yeah, Aiden, I think nearly every morning, it was Aiden and you and a few others that I absolutely had to see before I started my day, or my day just wouldn't begin right. And when somebody wasn't there, it was a hole. It was just a hole. And yeah, I was just absolutely devastated, as we all were, with the passing of a dear, dear friend. He was just a cool guy, and his family, I'm on Facebook, and his family sometimes remembers and captures something that occurred during a time when Aiden was with us, and yeah.
Right, and I know OSSB
special.
And I know OSSB planted a tree
right,
in honor of him. So that's
Aiden lives on. His spirit lives on, which is absolutely wonderful. Love it.
Yes, it is.
I'm thrilled to know that.
Is there any advice or anything else that you'd like to add about your time or what have you?
Sure. I guess maybe if you some advice as we just kind of think about life, and maybe old people, young people, doesn't make any difference. But I think my advice might be, and it was something that someone shared with me, is follow your dream, listen to your heart. Be passionate. Be passionate about what you do. Be the best you can be. Care for one another. Be kind, and love. And life is full of happy opportunities. If we search for them, if we look for them, they're there.
Right.
So I mentioned that I have great gratitude for the school. So I would encourage us all to maybe count our blessings, have an attitude of gratitude, be thankful for what we have. Don't be discouraged if it doesn't all happen at one time. Be patient. It was like the advice that someone gave to me when I was starting my career at OSSB is you're not going to do it all at once. Just take your time and it will happen, and it did. So be patient, and life is full of opportunities, and we need to be patient and wait for some of those opportunities to happen. But on the other hand, don't wait too long, because sometimes we don't always know how long life will be. So seize the day.
Right.
Seize the moment.
Now, I gave you, when you were still there, obviously, I gave you a history of the school book that had been published many moons ago.
Yes, you did.
And
I have enjoyed reviewing that and reading that. It's a compilation of lots and lots of history of who and what and when and how it all came about. And it is filled with lots of neat information, and I thank you for that.
You are welcome.
It's one of those things that I don't forget is the history and the traditions, the legacy of the school, and it's been very, very helpful to know that. It kind of grounds us in who we are and why we are where we are. Absolutely.
Yes, it does. I think that'll do it, unless you have anything else you'd like to add.
Again, just thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit. If I've rambled too much, I apologize. I'm sure you can chop out what you need to chop out and editorialize as you feel the need. But just things that roll around in my head, so I talk a lot, and I apologize for that. But I do appreciate just the chance to. I am thankful for anyone who might be listening who took a chance on an old guy to be part of a school culture that absolutely was a wonderful, wonderful place for me to land. Thanks to staff for believing, and certainly, as I've mentioned, thanks for students who. For your love and support as well, because as always, the best lessons I ever learned are from students. So, thanks for teaching me.
You are welcome.
And thank you for having me on the air. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Okay.
Okay. Stand by. I'm gonna wrap it up. So
okay.
Stand by.
I will. All right.
Don't forget to give us a like on Facebook and a follow on Instagram and Twitter. Also, make sure to go follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Until then, bye for now.
Well, you gotta give them credit.
Why's that?
Well, they're gonna keep on doing it till they get it right.
Thanks for joining us this week on OSSB Inside and Out. Make sure to follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter by searching for OSSB Inside and Out Podcast. Make sure you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. Thank you for listening.